And the main thing is that for the last point here, a lot of people think that if you have a tool, a technical tool, you'll be able to do adoption and governance. And that's not how it works. You know, you can't, a technical tool will not bridge the gap between this deficit of it's a strategic deficit, not a technical one. So the tools are there to start and help you. So a lot of the tools I'll show you today, they're there to kind of help you in your adoption or governance journey, but on their own, you know, it's maybe not enough. You need to have the right expertise to be able to do that. So what are the current challenges regarding this? The first challenge is that everything is new. So, you know, be it Power Platform, be it low code, be it citizen development, these are new concepts, relatively speaking, applying when they're being applied on the ground. Now, you might argue that, you know, low code is not new. You know, we've had expressions in Excel and other forms of low code. Citizen development isn't new. We've had, you know, people in the business building access databases and things like that. And that is correct. The only difference being that at those times that we weren't encouraging the business to do that. We weren't encouraging business users to build applications. Whereas with Power Platform, it's a bit different. We're now encouraging them to get involved in what used to be IT related kind of, you know, things that we used to be done. Now it's more about actually we encouraging them and we are teaching the business how to leverage low code. So effectively, this is a journey for everyone. Even myself as an adoption specialist, I haven't experienced every single scenario. So I think it's a journey where we're all together, we're all learning together and trying to bring adoption to businesses. So that's the introduction done. Apologies if it's a little bit of a boring topic. I don't have like too exciting power apps to show you. I think that's going to come when Ahmed comes into the stage. So I'll cover some of the tools that I talked about. So I've talked about in theory, what is Power Platform adoption and governance. So I'll show you some tools now, and hopefully you've seen this before. If not, it'll be interesting. So firstly, Microsoft has got a Power Platform adoption plan already, a workbook. So they have, to some extent, given you some guidance. So if you're looking, if your business has just decided now to think about Power Platform and have a more formal adoption strategy, this is a good place to start. So Microsoft have somewhat of a framework with 3 stages, and they try to give you some tasks to get you on the way. Now this is in the form of a slideshow. So this is in the form of a slideshow, and you know, in there they've got different kind of elements. I'll try and see if I can bring that up on screen for you. So this is it. This is the Microsoft adoption workbook, and as you can see, you've got some tools here. So they talk about their adoption framework, and then they give you some tools to help you get started and understand. You know, so here I find it is pretty linear. So here Microsoft is starting with assembling your team, and they tell you all about that, along with try and explain to you why you need a team and who the different members are and things like that. So that's the Microsoft workbook. Now, the thing I find here is that you need to have had some level of experience in adoption to be able to you know, adopt effectively using this particular tool. Not the technical issues again. It's a theme today, huh? Just go back to where we were. Okay, so that's the Microsoft adoption plan. And yeah, essentially it's just a PowerPoint slideshow, and they do give you some tools within that. It's pretty linear, and ideally, if you're just starting out and you haven't done anything else, it's a good starting point. It gives you some tasks, as well as some understanding as to how Microsoft envisions you should adopt Power Platform. Yeah, so the adoption is mainly for enterprises rather than smaller businesses. The smaller businesses will be using PowerApps, Power Platform and PowerApps a bit more informally. This topic is more relevant to enterprises where they want to use Power Platform at larger scale rather than just individuals building apps and not having any formal strategy in place. So this is why then we need some type of framework or formal kind of way to do that, because it's at scale. You can't just learn as you do it. Sorry, I'll share the screen. Okay, let me just share it again. It should come up now. Great. So the other one is the Applied Information Sciences Power Platform Adoption Framework. So this framework is a little bit more on the theory side of things. They have a white paper where they explain all of these different elements that they have. So essentially, the main concept here is that the landing zone is your starting point. So, and from that, the main goal of using Power Platform at enterprise level is to bring business value. And how you do that is through enterprise management, which is your governance, and then your solution deployment, and how you bring those solutions that you've developed to life. So the white paper explains all these stages in detail, along with giving you some ideas of what type of tools you should use, but it doesn't necessarily give you any tools. It's more of a theoretical framework. And lastly, I have my own adoption program that I've developed for Power Platform. So I've looked at what was available on the market and tried to fill a gap where there is a mix of theory and practical tools to help you adopt at a larger scale. So this is the framework, and as you can see, I've got 10 different work streams. And if we pick on one work stream, for example, we got the makers work stream. That work stream is all about how you bring in your citizen developers to do the developments themselves in a way that it fits your company's goals. Now, one thing you'll find is that if you have a linear approach, which is what I showed you with Microsoft's adoption program, adoption plan, it's difficult to kind of follow through, because you will think, okay, I haven't assembled a team, so I can't do the next bit. Whereas here, I try to not make it linear. You can, start in any work stream as a starting point, and then, complete from there. Now, as part of that, I also have some tools to help. I'll try and share them with you now. So I'm just sharing the screen as well for the audience online, so that they don't miss what we have here. So the first thing that I have is a Power App. So I try to use Power Platform to also build the tools. Oh, that's not coming up. Can you guys see the screen now? Okay. Yeah, so I've got a Power App that I use as a supplement to the framework that I've got. This is to help you navigate through the framework. So if we look, for example, at the assemble work stream, then I've got some actions there as well. And if you look at an action, for example, if we look at setting up the central repository, this is when you're starting out, you want to have a central location where you're storing all your files. And if you've got a team, you're collaborating with different teams, you've got one place where you fit everything. So with the Power App, you've got that as the action, and then you can track that with different artifacts. For example, here you can link it back to where you set it up. So as a team, you all can access this and kind of know where you are. And depending on the action, you'll have different artifacts. As you can see here, there's different artifacts, different types of artifacts. And as you fill in your adoption journey, then there is also a dashboard to help you kind of see where you are in that journey. So it's a way to try and communicate where you are on your Power Platform adoption journey. With Microsoft, you will have the maturity model that you could use to kind of communicate that. I tried to make something a bit more visual and easier to understand. So that's the last adoption framework that I'll show you guys today, and how they kind of come up and the tools within that. So if you guys got any questions, whilst I just switch slides again, it'll be a good time to cover that. Okay, so that's the non-technical kind of tools. Now, if we look at the technical type of tools, so these are the tools that you actually install and configure, and they help you with governance and adoption. Now, I feel that the tools are more towards governance than they are to adoption. The adoption tools are those that I mentioned before. Those are specific to integrating Power Platform in your business and are more business activities. Whereas these tools I'll cover now, they're more governance tools. You actually install and configure them to then, assess your tenancy and then make decisions based on that. So I think they both go hand in hand. And I think this particular tool needs no introduction. It's the COE Starter Kit developed by Microsoft. I think all of us that work in Power Platform are pretty familiar with it. They give you a Power App. As you can see here, this is actually a model-driven app where you can see, the usage of Power Apps in your environment, who's developing is pretty detailed. And then what you can see at the bottom there is a Power BI dashboard. Again, it's equally as insightful. So if you're starting out, again, you've done the adoption plan, you install the COE kit, you'll have a pretty good idea of where you are in your, Power Platform usage within your business. And the good thing about this is that it's free as well. It's freely available. The Power Platform team within Microsoft has put a lot of hard work, and I recommend everyone to install it. You'll need a premium license, but once you've set it up, they keep updating it pretty frequently, and it's quite good to use it. Then we have some third-party tools, and the only other tool that I could find that was equally as good as the Microsoft one was this tool here by RunPipe. It's the way I see it is that it's an extension to the COE kit. It's actually quite. It takes the COE kit and puts it on steroids. Actually, it's very nice. It looks very nice, and not only does it have insights onto who's using what, but also they try to implement the project plan aspects of it within their tool itself. So if you're looking for that one tool that will help you govern and also plan projects, this seems like an ideal tool to use. After that, again, there aren't too many tools on the market that are suitable to be applied at enterprise level, but Rancor has a good governance tool. Now, the governance tool that I have is for M365, so not just Power Platform, but you'll find that within this tool that they have, you've got some elements of Power Platform that can help you with governance and adoption. So it's worth looking at. So in summary, you've got the Power Platform adoption frameworks that are available that I've showed you. And then you also have those technical tools to install and kind of get an insight of your tenancy and go through some tasks that they give you as well. No, those are, so the only one that was Microsoft was the first one, and the other one, the RunPipe and RenCode, these are third-party tools. That's right, yeah, they are paid tools, and they have, one of them is a monthly subscription, the other one I think is an annual subscription. You can go to their website and they'll have full information there, but from my understanding, they are not that expensive as well. They're quite accessible for enterprises. So now that we've covered all of the different tools, I'll talk about the commonly kind of addressed topics. So every time I go into a client, there is some common things that I see that keep coming up. So I'll talk to you about that. And if you are looking at adopting Power Platform in your organization, or you know of someone, they will probably have questions around these things, and hopefully I can give you some insights into them. The first thing is licensing. So we all know that you know, Power Platform is comes with Windows, and the good thing about it is that everyone has access to Power Platform, be it an individual or a company. Now, the licensing can be a bit complicated, but essentially, you can do a lot of innovation, and you can do Power Platform adoption without purchasing premium licenses. You know, you would have to use a SharePoint list instead of Dataverse, but depending on your level of adoption, so I've had clients with different levels of adoption. You know, some clients were not interested in citizen development. Other clients were pretty much interested in that. And other clients, big enterprise clients, they had everyone licensed. So again, that will be different for everyone. But what you should know is that without the premium license, a lot of governance and adoption can be implemented, and a lot of business value can be achieved. So my recommendation is start with that first, prove the concept without spending on premium licenses, and then look at spending money on the platform. And again, as you adopt and govern and you become more mature, you'll know how it fits in your organization and if it's worth the investment. The other main topic is the types of developers. So although, you know, we say that Power Platform is for citizen developers and we heavily want to market that, the reality is that a lot of companies are still using the central side of things to deliver business value before they go into citizen development. So those two areas, the citizen development and the champion side of things, is pretty new concept for businesses. So majority of the time when you're adopting and doing governance, it's going to be for the central developments, the big developments. And then my recommendation is to always start with that. That's where you get the most value quickly. And then you start focusing on citizen developers and champions. Those are new concepts, relatively speaking, to businesses, to us as well, that are, you know, involved in the market. So that would be my recommendation for that. And then last but not least is the DLP policies, which, you know, they're easy to understand and set up. It's just about what APIs you want to enable. And those are, you know, the connectors you have in your Power Platform environment. Should we allow everyone to use the Twitter connector or not? You know, and I think that to answer that question, you have to think about your environment strategy, because it goes hand in hand. You know, how are you going to allow you know, people to use Power Platform within your business? And that's basically your environment strategy. Are you going to, you know, seal off certain departments, certain organizations within your enterprise? So once you've got your environment strategy, then you can talk about DLPs and you know, which connectors to use in which environments and by whom. So to conclude, I think if you're going to ask the question, is there a best tool for Power Platform adoption and governance? The answer is there isn't one. It's what brings value to your business. So any of the tools today that I've shown you, any of the frameworks, they will all bring value to you. It's all about the second point I put there, the execution. So, you know, if you take the Power Platform adoption from Microsoft, the workbook is only a slide, but you execute it pretty well, then you will bring business value, regardless of how complex the adoption framework is. And for the last point there, it's all about you wanting to, fancy a little bit of a challenge. I know the topic, can be a bit complex, a bit boring. It's more on the business side than the technical side, but it can be exciting if you, look at it as a challenge. Try to get involved into something new. So for all the developers here today, all the architects, it is important to look into Power Platform adoption in your organization. So if it's not being looked at in a formal way now, I've given you some starting points. Perhaps you could introduce that to your organization. That concludes everything I wanted to share with you today. If you have any questions, I think if we have time. Yeah, if there's any questions online or in person, I'll be happy to answer them. Yeah, go ahead. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. So you mentioned that Power BI has been available for a long time, maybe 10, 15 years. You're absolutely right. So that's not a new technology, and that's correct. Power BI as an individual product has been available, but Power Platform and low code as a concept, it's relatively new. In technology terms, maybe in the last 5 years, people have started to adopt it. Now, a lot of the times, we see Power BI as a separate product, even though it's part of Power Platform. So yeah, that statement doesn't apply to Power BI and analytics, because analytics is not new. Yeah, Power Platform is new, and using low code, especially in citizen development, that's relatively new. And a lot of the times, like I said, the focus is on Power Apps. So again, that statement is relevant for that, not Power BI. Power BI gets used as a consequence of the overall adoption or as an individual product as well. So thank you for your question. I think that's a good question. Is there any questions from the online, maybe on Teams or YouTube? If there's any, I'm happy to answer those.
You can buy enterprise, but actually, buy with this Bootcamp, which is provided by Microsoft.
Yeah, so your question is around enterprise license and the E5 license. So again, E5 license, even if you have E5, E3, they will still give you the same level of access to Power Platform, which is the non-premium stuff. The premium license is separate. You have to buy that and pay per user. And depending on your company and your suppliers, you'll have different deals. But with E5, E3, E1, or A1, A3, A5 for the education sector, you already have access to Power Platform to some extent, even if it's just Power Automate or Power Apps with the non-premium. Start there first. There is enough innovation you can bring to your business with that. You put Power Platform and you connect it with SharePoint lists, which is the reality on the ground. Majority of businesses start there. So before spending money, this is how you can evaluate what value Power Platform can bring to your company. So as developers, what you can do is create some proof of concepts. You will have access to this. And even if you want to use Dataverse, Microsoft gives you a lot of trials, and you can extend up to 3 times. So effectively, you could have 60 to 90 days trial of premium. So there is plenty of availability for you to trial the technology and prove value before spending money on premium licenses. And that's what I recommend. I think if there isn't any more questions, we can wrap it up. Is there anything, Ahmed, from online, in case there is, or shall we wrap it up? Okay, thank you very much, everyone. And I'm looking forward to connect with you on LinkedIn. And if you got any questions after this, please feel free to message me there. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, we've got a late question coming in here. So the banking sector and many other sectors, they have on-premise solutions, and maybe, it might not be the sector, but the countries. Some countries, they still prefer on-premise. So the reality is that Power Platform is more of a cloud platform. You can have an hybrid on-premise kind of setup, but ideally, you need to be on the cloud to leverage Power Platform. So for those clients, when they're looking at their adoption strategy and governance, they really need to reevaluate that approach of using only on-premise. Now, this is easier because it's Microsoft, and I've had this as well with clients where they have sensitive data in their on-premise, and they find it easier to put into Azure Cloud than they would if this was a third-party vendor. So the only thing I can say is you need to reevaluate, because the way things are moving. If you want to still stay on-premise, I think you'll find a lot of challenges with using products. Most products nowadays is on subscription model and on the cloud. So you will need to do the switch essentially to take a full advantage of it. That it? Perfect. Thank you very much, guys, and looking forward to talk to you on LinkedIn.
All right. Thank you so much, Azim, for that wonderful, informative session. So we are in the second session now. So we will look at how we can automate the e-signature workflows with Power Automate and Adobe Sign. So myself, Ahmed Uzair, and I'm the community lead of Power Platform User Group UAE and a software engineer as well. So so I have been working with Power Platform for a couple of years now, mainly with PowerApps and Power Automate. So building model-driven as well as the Canvas apps with different kind of integrations, and we have been working on a lot of insurance products and insurance platform integrations, and as well as payment gateway integrations around with different vendors, right? So e-signatures. So e-signatures, it might not have much of an impact on our day-to-day lives, but if you look at a broader perspective, from the stats, we can see that between 2015 and 2020, the transactions of e-signatures have increased from 89 million to 754 million globally, right? And on paper documents, and American businesses annually spend more than $120 billion, right? So, and of course, as you can see, 65% of the businesses that use pen and paper add a whole day to a workflow, right? So it's costly. The pen and paper-based processes are costly. They are time-consuming, right? And of course, they are not sustainable as well. As you can see, an e-signature solution can save up to 2.5 billion trees in less than 20 years, right? So that's a huge number. So with Power Automate and Adobe Sign, you can start a signature process from a service trigger. Let's say what we'll also see is, let's say you have a Power Apps which where you store all your contracts and agreements and stuff, where you create all the agreements and stuff. Now imagine you enter the details of the agreement which you require. Let's say this is the service, this is the details, start date of the contract, this, that, everything. You have a template in the background. Once you submit that, it creates a PDF out of with all the details with the signature, puts it in Adobe Sign, and sends it out for signature without any intervention. All it required was just a click, right? And once let's say at this point you require several signatures from several people, right? So as and when the status updates, you keep on getting the updates on your Power Apps or on your email that okay, this person has signed. Of course, Adobe Sign does give you notifications, but let's say you want only in your Power Apps itself all the updates. So we can create a webhook to also perform any status updates to that agreement. Okay? Of course, you can move documents from one sign service to another, from Adobe Sign to, let's say, PandaDoc or something of that sort. And you can finally, let's say, once the workflow has been completed, once the signing of the contract has been completed, you want to receive the PDF of signed documents to, let's say you want to send it off directly to the compliance department. So you can add it as part of your automated workflow. Once the signing has been completed, send it to the compliance, send it to the account, send it to this person. That's it, right? So of course, there possibilities are endless. Of course, because the human brain can think of limitless possibilities. So what we are gonna build, we're gonna build something today. So we're gonna build a Power App where a user logs in, they create and upload in the contract agreement, and once they do that, it gets stored in the SharePoint list, and the SharePoint list will start an automation with the Power Automate, where it will create an agreement on Adobe Sign and upload it over there, send the email for e-signature. Once that is done, it will update the status back into our Power App, right? Basically back into the SharePoint and finally in our Power Apps as well, right? So we can get the notifications. So simple workflow, but an effective one, right? So we'll let's start building it, right? So I am just gonna in this presentation over here. So we'll look at this. So I have a Power App already, but I think let's start from scratch. So we'll start from scratch and build the Power Apps from there, right? So let me just go to our Power Apps Maker portal. So let's say we are gonna go and create. We are gonna go directly and create from a SharePoint app so that it's faster.
And not premium, huh?
Yeah. And not premium. So this doesn't require a premium license. So that's a very important what do you call it? The important subject for a lot of companies, to be honest. A lot of companies want to utilize their existing framework. Let's say they are already using SharePoint, they don't want to move to Dataverse or let's say SQL Server or some premium, something that requires a premium license. So of course, migration is also a cost and license, of course, is a cost as well, right? So SharePoint is not a premium connector. Adobe Sign is not a premium connector. Of course, you are paying the Adobe Sign license separately anyway. So it's not a premium connector, right? So as you can see, this Power App is already made. So in case you are a bit new to Power Apps, so you can directly generate a ready-made Power Apps from any data source, be it SQL Server, be it SharePoint, be it Dataverse. So it will generate a Power Apps with 3 screens for you, which is the browsing screen, which is this one, edit screen, which is this one, and a detail screen as well, which is this one. And so it's all there out of the box. We did not do anything till now. We just selected the data source and we selected the type of app, right? So now we have something ready. Now it's time to modify this, right? So right now, if you see in this gallery, so this is a gallery which shows and the data source is our contract management SharePoint list, right? So, and we have a bit of search items and all that stuff over here. So what we are going to do is we will modify. So right now it says Adobe Sign Agreement ID. We don't want that. We do not care what the ID is. The user doesn't want to see it. What user is interested in is the status of the agreement, right? So what we are going to map this to is the agreement status. Right? So as you can see, the values have been changed. So new, signed, and this one doesn't have a status right now. Okay. So now with this Power App, I have right now I have already created some flows, but we'll do it from I will start from scratch. I'm gonna turn these flows off so that we don't get like double flows and stuff. So we're gonna
The Adobe Sign connector, is that free or premium?
Connector is free, but Sign already has a premium license. So,
Okay, so you need like a
yeah.
separate.
Yeah, that's a separate
with the
subscription.
vendor.
Absolutely, yeah. So we are going to create an automated flow, and it will be a trigger of on on SharePoint. So of course, in case you're wondering why not trigger from the Power Apps itself, Power Apps Canvas connector, of course we can do that. But since we are already storing it in SharePoint, it's gonna end up in SharePoint anyway, so you can use either, right? So it's really a choice which you can make. So let's say we are gonna we're gonna call it send the new agreement or signing, right? New agreement or All right, so we have this over here. So in the trigger, we will select which is the site. So I have the test site over here. So in the name, we have the contract management list over here. Advanced options we don't want. Now once we have the item ID and name and everything, all the details, what should we do? Now, what should be the next step? What do you think? So your Power Apps has created the item in the SharePoint list. Now what should happen?
The email should be sent to the contractor, I mean, by the email, the link site.
Okay.
So it's better to approve first this contract inside the team and then send.
True. We can have an approval workflow as well, like internal to the organization. When a contract is created, start an approval workflow where once it is approved internally, and then it sends to. Very good point. That can be one of the use cases as well. I was thinking of a much simpler one, but we can do that as well. Yeah. So we can do that, of course, as well. So we have in Power Automate, if you are aware, we already have an approvals workflow built in, right? So you can create start and wait for an approval. So let's say if you start and wait for an approval, you can send an email to that to the appropriate person, and they will receive, if they're using Outlook, I would say, an adaptive card inside the email itself, where they can just approve or reject inside the email with their comments, and the status changes inside the email itself. You don't have to move out of the context, right? So, and it will, this flow, once unless and until that person responds, this flow will pause. It doesn't it is still executing, but it's paused. So it doesn't terminate. So once they may take an action, then this flow will resume, right? So let's say just for the sake of it, I'm just going to start. Let's say, so you have a couple of options: approve, reject, approve, first to respond. Everyone must approve. If you have multiple, you need a response from each and every one of them. And otherwise, first to respond is just one person. So let's say Azim is there, you're there, there are three people. A first to respond means any of you will respond, it's done. But if everyone must approve, then all three of you must say yes for you to for them to move forward. It's like America's Got Talent. Everyone has to say yes or something of that sort, right? So we can do that. And let's say if I try to add a new step, I can even add a condition over here. So the status of this, basically the response, right? I just the outcome. You see, the outcome, it should be equal to, it's usually approved or reject, or you can provide your own custom one. Based on the outcome, you can define the workflow. So if it's approved, then probably send it for signature. If it's not approved, then send a mail to the owner that this was rejected by so and so person with some remarks. Correct? I think so. We'll just keep it a bit simple for this demo, but I think this was a good use case. So what we'll do is we will fetch the attachments which they put on the Power Apps. So we will fetch those attachments and get the content and send it, upload it in Adobe Sign, and then send it to their. Okay, so it's not as simple because SharePoint sometimes makes things a little complicated. But so first, what you need to do is you need to go to
the record created on SharePoint is via PowerApps.
Yes, that's correct. So as you can see over here, you can see attachment. So you can see get attachments. So it gets the attachment related to a specific SharePoint record. Okay. So again, we define the let's say data site, let's say the list, right? And the ID should be the ID of this item, which triggered the workflow, correct? So we'll take the ID of that, right? So now we have the attachments with us, right? Now attachment will only give us the metadata, the name, the file type and stuff. But Adobe Sign Connector will expect us to provide the base64 or the binary object. So that means we need to get the file content instead of just the attachment metadata, right? So what we will use is now in SharePoint, if you search for file, you see there's a lot of the file stuff. But what we are looking for is the get file content, right? And of course, you put the site address again because everything is related to a site. Now, file identifier is the one which you got from the attachment, right? Attachment is always a file, right? So you you put that ID over there. Now, can somebody answer why we have automatically why we have gotten applied to each automatically over here? Exactly. There could be multiple attachments in a file. But in this point, let's say if it's a contract, we need to make sure that it's only one, right? Because then in that case, it becomes a bit complex. The flow becomes a bit complex. Let's say we say the use cases where only one contract can be signed at a time. Okay. So how can we do that? Shall we do it over here or should we do it in the PowerApps? The limit of one attachment.
I think it's the input, right?
Yeah.
Can we do it in both the better do it in PowerApps to restrict the permission?
At the input itself, correct. Better to do it in PowerApps itself to restrict at that point itself instead of handling the things over here, right? So because it has already been created now, you have to go back and say. So of course, so what we'll do is we'll modify the PowerApps a little to limit the attachments to one only.
That's actually a really good point because if you already have an existing SharePoint list and you didn't put the rules there, it doesn't matter.
Exactly.
In PowerApps, you can do all the other rules.
Yep.
So essentially, you can rebuild that with other rules.
Right.
Great.
Right. And that's why if you have noticed, so in your SharePoint, you have default forms. If I go over here, you have this default list of forms, right? But you can modify this form with using a Power App, and you can apply the rules there. So if you see, the limitation of this form is you cannot remove the some specific fields from this form. You cannot disable a field in this form, but you can do it in Power Apps. So you customize this form using Power Apps and use the customized form over here. That's the out of the box functionality. So that is a very flexible and very powerful one because for organizations who are using SharePoint heavily as a data source, it comes in handy because then you can apply any custom logic. Let's say, for example, it's a assessment questionnaire or something, internal assessment questionnaire, where based on some questions which you answer or some options that you choose, some more sections populate, right? But you cannot do it over here, right? Exactly. You can make it dynamic and add a validation logic, custom logic, everything.
How have organizations been using SharePoint all this time? How have they been doing this forms? Is it through coding or something?
Yes, you can have web parts. I have not been into the intranet and the intranet building part, but yeah, I think as far as I know, there are SharePoint web parts which you can build on your intranet sites and stuff like that, right? So let's go back to our flow. So once we have the file content, now we have ensured that it's only going to be one attachment. So we don't need to do any logic, put any logic over here. We have the file content now. We are going to send it for signing. Now we go to the Adobe Acrobat Sign. So Adobe has a couple of connectors, so you can explore this for PDF, for Creative Cloud and stuff. But we are going to focus on.
Sign the same.
Yes.
Same in the Power.
Yes. So there are a couple of signing applications integrated in Power Automate. So there's, I think, DocuSign is there. There's one more, Sign Now or one more. So there are a couple of them available over here. Of course, if it's not, then you can always use a custom connector under with the REST API, right? So that's always an option. So as you can see over here, there's quite a few options. So you can cancel an agreement from here, create a library template, create an agreement from a document URL. This one, create an agreement from an uploaded document and send for signature. This is something which we are going to use. Get a PDF of a signed agreement, document from an agreement, and stuff, right? So before we can actually send it for signature, we need to upload it, right? So that document needs to be needs to exist in Adobe Sign before we actually create an agreement out of it, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to upload it from here, right? So the file name, let's say we can put the file name as the title of the SharePoint item which we created. So we'll add that. And file content is something which we have already got. So we will add that. Okay. So if you see advanced option, you can put in the name of someone else. Okay. So email of the API caller. So but that caller needs to have a license of Adobe as well in your organization, right? Oh, once we have uploaded the document, now it's the time for sending it for signature, right? So we'll come back to Adobe Acrobat Sign, and you can see create a document from an uploaded, create an agreement from an uploaded document and send for signature. So we are going to use this. We have quite a few options over here. Again, agreement name, let's just stick to the title. So because that's what's going to be the most significant thing which users are going to put on the app. Document ID. Document ID is something which we have already gotten in the previous step. So we're going to use that. And signature type. So if we are going to do e-sign, participant's email, to whom you want to send it for signature, right? So that signature should come from the signer email. So basically, I should have showed you this.
There should be two sides, just inside and the other in outside.
I didn't get you, sorry.
I mean, two signatures, one inside the company and another outside.
Yeah, technically. So let's say so you can put as many signatures as you want. So if I say add new item, so you can add participant number 2 as well over here. So you can put as many signatures over here, right? So let's say if there are 10 people also, all of them can send it for signature.
If suppose the company is very big and they do this manually for each, or is there some like semicolon?
That's a good question. Then in that case, we'll have to run another separate flow because it's I don't think this one supports that yet. You can wait, sorry, you can do it in a JSON format as well. So technically you can get an Excel, let's say, parse it in the JSON and then send it off, right? That's one way. Otherwise, so there are different ways with the APIs as well, right? So for now, we are just going to stick to one just for the demo. So we are going to stick to one, and that person will be the signer email which we have entered in the app. Okay. So we're just going to put this over here. You can if you have multiple of them, you can put the order as well. And you can define the role of that person. So if he's a signer, if it's an approver and stuff, right? So once that is done, our flow is complete technically. So what our flow as a summary, what our flow does right now is whenever we have submitted something from PowerApps, it will run this, get the attachments. It will get the file content of those attachments and upload a document to Adobe Sign, and then finally send that document for signature, right? Okay, fair enough. So let's.
There's a question from asking if the Adobe connector is a premium one.
No, connected is not premium. The license already exists separately. So connector is not.
Where have you put the token and the connection you did there?
Yes, I should have showed you that. Okay,
that's something you configured before.
Yeah, I had actually already done that. So let's say when you add a new connection, it asks you to sign in Adobe. Acrobat. So you put that over here. You sign in with your account. Let's say we have this over here, and okay, we had the password. So okay, so it automatically takes you over there into the Adobe Sign SSO, and you can add once you sign this over here, it will add the token into Power Automate, add the connection into Power Automate, and then you can use that directly. Right? Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think there's got a follow-up question. You just need an Adobe subscription then? Is that the only?
Yes,
thing you need
that's
to
correct.
do?
That's correct. All right. So that's how you create the connection. So what we are going to do is, oops, I think we have missed document ID. All right, sorry. Oops. I think we have to actually sign it up. Can you redirect, please? Okay. So as you can see, that's how you sign in. So it should. Okay. So we've added the document ID. We'll quickly save it. Now let's try to actually send an agreement for signing before we do the next steps. So this one. So we have the app over here. We're gonna create a new record, right? So let's say the title will be test GPG 2023. Okay, signer email. Let's say I will put my Gmail. I already have a sample attachment. So it looks like this. I will show you actually. So we'll just see it on Adobe Sign itself. So now I'm just adding this. Okay, so we will add this. As you can see, we the default status is new, so it has then added that. We'll go back and see if it ran our flow. So second. See if it created our item. Yep, it did. So for some reason it did not run.
Have to take up to 15 minutes.
Usually, at least in the morning, it was triggered immediately. Usually, it doesn't take that long. Max 15 seconds is what I have noticed.
Yeah, I think it depends as well. Like officially, it can take up to 15 minutes.
When you are in events like this, it happens.
Yeah, usually. Okay, any minute now. Okay, you know what? Let's just let's create another one. Let's create another record, no problem. Yeah. Okay, test PPBB. Okay, and sign your emails. But it's again, and okay, don't embarrass me again, please. All right. Yep. So it ran. It ran 11 seconds ago, but okay. Anyway, it was just not showing. So as you can see, so we have got this thing, the item, the attachments, the file content. So this is the important part where we have uploaded the content and we have got the document ID, and it has created a document as well, right? Now I should receive in this thing. Yeah. So as you can see, Power Platform User Group UE has asked for a signature. I can now review and sign. So this was the sample one. Okay, so it has automatically, now, if you remember, we did not put any placeholders or anything in the document, right? We had just put sign here thing. it automatically detected where the signature will come. Original document, yeah. Technically, this
was just a document without being configured on Adobe Sign.
Yeah. Yeah. So original document is just this without this. Okay, I'll just quickly open that.
That's a function of Adobe Sign, right? Basically.
Yeah. So original document is this.
So
Yeah. So it automatically detects, and then now you can sign. So let's say, right, I apply, I click to sign. Yep. So, and that's it.
Ahmad, can you hear me? It's Rehan here.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Just a quick question. Amazing. I've not really tried this Adobe connector first, so it's really valuable for me because I've actually got a use case at the moment with e-signature requirements. So I'm very interested in this. One question, you mentioned you don't need to define the placeholder in the Adobe document. Does it work if you define the placeholder in a specific point in the PDF as well? Will it work like that as well?
Yes,
You know,
it will.
yeah.
Then in that case, you might have to manage, go to your Adobe Acrobat Sign itself and define the document over there. And then you can start with that document as well. Or you can define a template over here as well. And then let's say we define a template. Oops, I think it's signed out. This one, sign again. So you can define a template over here. And then you can fetch that template in your Power Automate flow, and then use that to get the signature.
Awesome. That's really really great. And so all you need is an Adobe subscription and you can start using this.
That's great. Yeah.
the Adobe subscription costly though.
Yeah.
I've got one already, you see, and I do use it, but I use it in a very manual way, you see, at the moment to do my contract work. It's not linked into any process, but with this, I knew there was a link up, more closer link up between Adobe and Microsoft, but I didn't realize this was a standard connector, so that's good.
All right, perfect. Anything else in this one?
No, that's great. Thank you.
Awesome. So, so as you saw, we just signed this agreement, and but the only problem here is we have signed it, but our this thing still says that it's new, right? We did not update the state. Correct. So, but how will it update on our app? Right. Right. Did we create a webhook to update this? No. So that we will do that. And now let's say now you want to update the this status as well, right? But now if you create a new different webhook, now how will the Adobe Sign know that which item do I need to update, because it's now a different workflow, right? It doesn't have the same context of this item ID, correct? Now how would you manage that?
But then it has to send the file.
No. Yeah. So that's there for Power Automate approvals, but not for this one, where you can pause the workflow and then continue from there. Right.
You have to store what Adobe knows in this record, right?
Exactly. So we need to have the same common ID, which is the agreement ID, which we get at the end of this one, which we get over here. We store that as well. So
this ID is from PowerApps or from Adobe?
Adobe Sign.
Adobe.
Okay. Agreement ID.
So we give this ID to the SharePoint list and then take from SharePoint list.
Absolutely. Smart. Very good. So that's how we'll do it. So we'll store that ID, agreement ID, in our SharePoint list as well. When the workflow or when the webhook runs of the state change, we can refer to this ID and then update the status. Correct? Because this ID will always be unique, right? So what we are going to do is first we need to update it. So we have not done anything for updating it. So what we'll do is we'll add an action over here. we'll go to SharePoint. Let's say SharePoint and then update item, right? Update item. We select the.
Does that step only complete when the person has signed it? Because it doesn't seem like
It
it's
can
waiting.
reject.
No. This step is just for creation.
Right.
So once the this thing has been created and sent for signature, it will return. That's it.
Yeah. So we make ID.
Yes. We'll make a new flow,
Yeah.
which triggers only when the state changes. Right.
So I guess you gotta do a step to check the status and
Yes.
changes.
Yes, that's correct.
Update them.
So item ID will still remain the same, which the one which triggered this workflow, right? And the title will be again the same of the triggering one because that's a required parameter. So we have to do that. Adobe Sign Agreement ID, we already have a column. So we will put the agreement ID over there, leave the status as it is and save. Now, once this is saved, if we run it again, it will store the agreement ID as well. Okay. So, but now let's start the webhook. Let's build the webhook which will actually whenever the status changes, let's say it's sent out for a signature, it will be triggered. If it's if one person signs, it will be triggered. If it's cancelled, it will be triggered. If it's rejected, it will be triggered. Okay, so we have all those events. So let's
see also the changes offered by the signatures by the sign.
Sorry, come again.
Is it possible in Adobe that he will propose changes in this agreement? So he received the agreement to sign. He says, no, I want to make changes in it and send.
I think there is, but that's you can reject it and then probably you can do it again. I've not tried the comment. I've this thing, but yeah, we can just check it out.
Maybe just do another upload. Perhaps?
Yeah. So as you can see, we have a couple of events over here. When an event occurs, when a state of an agreement changes, when a new agreement is created, when a workflow is completed, when an agreement is sent to a particular participant. So even for a particular participant, let's say there was a point where the agreement was escalated to the CEO, right? So okay, if it's escalated to CEO, then we need to follow a different workflow. That kind of thing is also possible, right? So let's say we are going to use this one when the state of an agreement changes, because that's what we require as of now. So name of the trigger, let's say update agreement status and GPT 2023. Okay. The scope will be you can define the scope if it can be any agreement or some specific agreement or any agreement in your group or any agreement that you own or you have created, right? So that can be done, and then you can define the events on which this flow this event trigger should be called, right? So let's say we are going to call in all these events. So when agreement is created, participants completes their action. When agreement is completed, cancelled, rejected, or expires. Okay. So let's do that. Now, once we have this, again, with this trigger, we'll have the agreement ID, right? So what we are going to do is we are going to get the SharePoint item using that agreement ID, correct? So is SharePoint get items and get this over here. Get the contract management. Now, what we are going to put is the filter query, filter OData query. This is if it was Dataverse, then you could put fetch XML as well. But for SharePoint, you can put the filter query is in OData format. So if you're aware of OData format, it's super powerful, to be honest, to have in your SharePoint APIs, OneDrive APIs, Dataverse APIs, all that you can utilize that over there, right? So what we're going to do is our column name equals the agreement ID, right? So we need to get the items where the Adobe agreement ID equals the agreement ID which we received from that trigger, right? So what we're gonna do is Adobe agreement ID. Once again, that's the column name, right? No, Adobe sign agreement ID. Sorry, Adobe sign agreement ID. Agreement ID. Of course, this needs to be a logical name, not the name with the call with the the actual display name. So if there are spaces, remove those spaces. If there are some special characters like apostrophe and stuff, then it might be in Unicode now. So we really need to keep in mind. Sometimes Power Automate Flow doesn't show you an error. Where is the error? It just keeps on complaining that this column doesn't exist. In case you are still wondering why the hell is it not working, it might be because of that. So if it's sometimes it even treats space as the Unicode character, so you have to put agreement underscore UX, so that way. So what we're going to do is put inside the quotes the agreement ID. Since it's a string, so we need to put the quotes. So now we have the item now. So what we need to do is update the item with the status, correct? So just update the item. Update item, which is here 7. Okay, so we select the site again, select the list again, and we put the ID of the item, right? Then again, it's applied automatically comes into apply to each because there can be multiple items fetched, right? But in this case, we know that there's not going to be multiple items because agreement ID is always unique. So you can put this as it is. Now over here in the agreement status, we are gonna go to the Adobe sign, and we are just gonna capture the agreement status. Okay, we save this, and now we create another one for signature. So let's say the title says test with status GP 2023. Binary email is again mine, and we attach file, this one, right? And we save it. So we have received over here, and as you can see, it's in the status new, correct? Now, if we refresh once again, let's say that's okay. So, well, we're just gonna wait. We're just gonna wait for it. I hope I get the email. Right. Yeah. So, okay, we'll just wait for it to run. In the meantime, is there any question? Any other question?
Yeah. Is it possible to change this on oriented screen of PowerApps?
Yes.
So I usually confuse when I see the screen, I drop all automation and can stand this on profile. So I need just full desktop.
Yeah. So it is definitely possible. In fact, I'll show you.
Just convert the existing. I mean, not to create from scratch, but convert.
Yeah. So let's say if I do this, I can quickly show you in the display. You can change the orientation to landscape as well. It will move certain things, so it changes a lot of stuff.
This is for phone.
Yeah, still for phone. But when you're creating the app, let's say I'll just do this once. Okay. So when you're creating an app from blank, especially you can select the format. So tablet or phone. Now there is right now, from what you can see, it's only a specific format, yeah, either desktop or phone. There are ways to do it in a responsive way. So of course, but that requires a couple of things, a couple of additional configurations, I would say, a lot of formulas and stuff. But that's possible. So you can make it responsive. So and as like if someone is using on a phone, it will come properly, but it reduces the screen size, the element sizing, and all that stuff. And if it's on desktop, it will resize the elements accordingly.
And so it's not possible to convert the app you made in phone to convert it into not possible.
Technically, it is. Okay, I'll show you one more thing. This is this one, right? Use scale to fit. Close. Stop this. Okay, and let's say if I do this one and sorry, features, where did that go?
Mobile app, it's so somewhere.
Tab navigation. I think it's not. Okay. Okay. Usually it's you can resize the screen with the when you turn off the scale to fit, it resizes to the full length thing. Now you are free to modify it as per your requirement. So you can now at this point you can resize it according to your needs. But then in that case, it will not automatically scale as per the screen size. Then you have to take those things manually. Get it? So when you turn that off, you get a lot of flexibility, but then you get a lot of responsibility as well to resize based on the device form factors. So a couple of formulas there.
Yeah, and also, is it possible? So, for example, I have some lists where I don't have titles. So everything in the list is lookup. Everything is lookup. But every form requires a title, which I don't usually enter. So, how is it possible to avoid these titles?
Titles. Oh, you mean in the SharePoint list, the titles?
Yes.
We can do that. You can even like in the form, you can make it non-mandatory, and you can even change if you want. You can use the title for something else. Like you can change the name of the title column itself and to
yes, I want to change, but it's not possible to make title as lookup.
Yeah. So okay, let's connect that in later after this session. Yeah, let's connect over that. Okay, so I think for now, if you can see, now it's I've turned off scale to fit. Yeah, now I have the full screen. I have the full bandwidth to do anything and everything, right? So
yeah, but not possible to do.
Yeah. So if we try to refresh, I don't know, it's not gonna work. But yeah, so we're gonna just turn it back to the portrait with scale to fit.
In my experience as well, like Microsoft, like when you do it from the SharePoint, it's always the mobile. Yeah. I think, but it's not that hard. I think on the advanced, you can just do parent dot with, right, and then you just.
I think on the app, it's now kind of messed up. So I'm just gonna
some amount of users. Yeah, I think when you mess with those experimental features.
Yeah. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make this 46 for now. Wait, 30. I think 24 maybe.
And you can't restore a previous version.
I can. It's I'll just quickly finish this because I think we are already across the thing. So here, let's say if I go back. Okay, it's messed up quite a lot. But anyway, we can see it on the SharePoint list itself. That's the status has now changed to out for signature, right? So let's say now from my this thing, if I go over here, test with status, correct? So if I assign it again, if I assign it again, I continue, I go down, this one, say where, apply, and sign. So you're all set. And now finally, if I refresh, yep, it's changed to signed.
But signing by both,
Right now I have only put one signature, so it's only for one. Right. So if you put multiple, it will update the status for each of them. Right. So I think that's pretty much it from my side. Again, happy to connect if you guys have any questions or anything. Do we have any questions online? Please feel free to ask.
Ahmed, just a quick question. Adobe, presumably we can return things like the sign date, when it was signed and things like that. That's all available to us as well, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that's correct. If you want, we'll just I'll just quickly show you over here. So if we try to complete this, or we'll just see this. So as you can see, it gives you the event acting date, all that stuff, and it gives you the event date as well. So what was the event and the status and stuff. If you want, so if I go here, you can enable what kind of information you require, right? So if you want the agreement info, let's say yes, we want this one as well, let's say this one as well, and this one as well. I save this. Yeah. So say I'll create it from here so that one is too small. So let's say test and test 2. Let's just sign my and let's start the attachment again. Yes. Oops. No, not that up. So it's kind right new right now. So hopefully it's gonna take a little bit of time to trigger this one.
So what did you add there? This example?
Sorry, I added within the trigger. If you see in the trigger, I have enabled all this. So the trigger will include the agreement info, the participant info, document info, and the signed document info. Right. Yeah. So we will see what all information we are getting. So let's say, let's hope it runs quickly. Any minute now.
Yeah. It's all right. I think just knowing that's there is really useful because it means we can pull more metadata through, right? So obviously the obvious ones are what date was it signed, and also does it tell us who signed it as well?
Yeah. So if you put multiple senders, one second, I'm just
a problem in the trigger.
Yeah. Although when we open that, it doesn't show that. Location header is missing in the response. Location header is missing in the supply. Really?
I think we get the.
Yeah, but it's anyway it runs, so it's fine.
No, it's all good.
Yeah. So see the agreement creation detail, agreement sender email.
Great.
And stuff.
Yeah, no, Ahmad, I'm gonna definitely give this a go because I have a requirement. So this is good timing. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Any other questions, guys? Okay. All right. Any other questions online? All right, that's it. Perfect. Thank you so much, guys. So we'll just break for some time. I think our lunch is almost here as well. So then we'll start with the next session of with Rahan for raising the power of your Power Apps with custom code components. Right. Thank you so much again. So let's we'll catch up. We'll catch up again maybe around 2 p.m. UAE. Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Thank you.
All right. See you soon, guys.
Hi, Rahan. Whenever you're ready, we're ready.
Great. Great. How many can the guys in the room hear me?
Yep. Yep. Can
They
hear
can
you.
all hear us. Okay. All right. Let me just share my screen then. I've got a few slides to kick off with. Can you see that on the screen, the presentation?
Yep, we can. Yeah.
Awesome. Ahmed, because I can't hear the guys very clearly behind you, if they do have any questions or feedback as we go, I might just need you to translate what they're saying because I can't quite pick up what they're saying.
Of course, no worries.
All right, awesome. All right, let's kick off. So name of this session is raising the bar of your Power Apps. Let's begin with a bit of a formal introduction to myself. So for the last 15 to 20 years, I would classify myself as a Microsoft technology consultant. For the large part of my career, I've helped organizations transform themselves early on with SharePoint. And here in the UK, where I'm based, I've run some pretty large SharePoint and Office 365 and M365 practices as a consultant, lead consultant, and practice lead. I'm the CEO at Connected People, which is my own consultancy. And about a year ago, I founded a new company called Locodera, which specializes in innovative solutions and code components around Power Apps. So we're doing a lot of interesting things in the Power App space. So that's a bit about me. And as we all know, Power Apps and Power Platform more broadly is being adopted quite far and wide. 86% of F500 companies globally are using Power Apps today already, and even more so the wider Power Platform, largely because I think of Power BI is almost 97% coverage across that same F500 group. These stats are pretty old, so the numbers are actually likely to be higher. I think in terms of Power Apps, I think the latest stat that I've seen floating around is we now have upwards of 750 million active Power App developers globally. So the momentum for Power Apps certainly is there, and we see many organizations, as we know, using Power Apps and creating Power Apps today. Just a quick question for the group. How many of the people amongst us today have got direct experience in building Power Apps themselves?
We have like 4 people.
Yeah. So is that everyone in the room?
Technically.
Yeah.
Technically, yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. So that's good to know. I'm just getting a gauge of how familiar the audience is with Power Apps directly. And then that means I can infer that the organizations that you work for or work in are all using Power Apps today, right? That's fair to say. Yeah. Okay. Great. So you're all familiar with Power Apps, what they are, and to some extent how they're built today. As you can see on the screenshots, right, Power Apps, especially Canvas apps, well, even model-driven apps, have a very distinctive look and feel to them. And this is one of the challenges that people have with them, in that people that build Power Apps and the end users kind of make the point that we love Power Apps. They can be built very quickly. They solve a lot of our business problems, but they don't look like professional web apps. They look the same, a bit clunky, and are not quite on par with what users expect to see in a professionally developed web app. So that's one challenge. And the second thing, limitation, which often people find, and this is especially true in small to mid-sized organizations, where there always isn't an option to use Power BI, and natively Power Apps itself is very limited in terms of what you can do with data visualizations. And even when you do have the luxury of integrating or using Power BI, there's a bit of a disconnect in the user experience. On one hand, you're building this application where users are interacting with the app, filling in some data, maybe filling in a form, doing some data capture or something like that. And the moment you want to do anything data visualization related, you have to send your users to Power BI, and all of a sudden they're in this different user experience, and that creates this disconnect. And even though there are techniques where you can embed Power BI into your Power App, for if you've ever had the chance to play with it, it's not the greatest experience. It's quite clunky, and there's certainly some limitations around that. So again, having built many Power Apps for organizations over the last few years, I was often coming up against these first two limitations. And the third one, which is a bit more subtle, is that although Power Apps is great and it's getting more and more powerful with its augmented capabilities and like AI and things like that, there are still certain advanced use cases where you just wouldn't even consider Power Apps to be the way to go to build that today with what you're given. And yeah, for those advanced use cases, professional development and existing web applications which exist are likely to be where people are going to go today to accomplish those things. And so the good news is, right, there is a way now around these three challenges, and there's a technique, or a technology, I should say, which became available a couple of years ago, called PCF Code Components. And this is essentially an extensibility framework which allows professional developers to essentially extend Power Apps and the controls that you get to build your apps with. Professional developers can go ahead and build their own. So just like Microsoft have made the native controls in your Power App available, like your text box, your gallery control, and the different things you're using today to build your Power Apps with, Microsoft allowed professional developers to go in and build their own ones, which would allow app makers to go in. And that's great. But you might be thinking, I'm not a professional developer, I can't use these. But actually, what we now see is the beginnings of a healthy ecosystem of developers who have already built these things and made these available. And that was the foundation for setting up my company, Locodera, where we've essentially created this whole library of premium code components to really extend what you can achieve inside of a Power App today. And I'll come back to kind of the different places where you can get hold of these components today. And of course, what my plan is after these slides is to jump into some demos and then show you how you can use these components in real life. But I wanted to kind of focus on the next few slides on being why would you do this? What are the benefits of using these code components, these ready-made code components in your apps? Well, quite simply, the biggest one is it gives you real level up possibilities for your Power Apps. You can deliver enhanced user experiences that you simply can't deliver before or without using these code components. So the idea of creating these highly polished user interfaces to address what you're trying to achieve in your Power Apps becomes distinctly possible the moment you start using these code components in your apps. And actually, you can get to the point where your Power App doesn't even look like a Power App anymore. It just looks like a professionally developed web app by a professional programmer out there. That's the idea of these things if you're using the right ones. And again, this is about low code, bridging the gap between pro code and low code, because low code, a Power App, you can tell it's a Power App today. And the real kind of point behind this is that actually you can elevate the standard of a low code Power App up to a pro grade level very quickly using this technology. And as we know, professional developers are very expensive and hard to find. And this is why, it's about making low code more powerful and reducing that quality gap which we see today. And of course, we know organizations, need to adapt and be more and more agile. We know that there's not enough professional developers out there, and it's really important to continue to churn out these Power Apps, because they are the solution for reducing this deficit in terms of these apps which need to be built over the coming years. The people in the room, us, are the solution to that problem. So this helps keep these organizations agile. The other thing is we see still a large number of organizations where we are seeing adoption of Power Apps. Of course we are. But in those same organizations, we are still seeing big investments being made in third-party tactical tools, things like, Monday.com, ClickUp. These are all low-code tools, which, arguably shouldn't really be in play if Power Apps and the Power Platform is truly adopted. But again, there are things and use cases, these advanced user experiences, which these other tools do really, really well. And people are still making investments in those. But again, this technology of PCF code components, once people understand the art of the possible, they will realize they've already got a strategic investment in a platform from Microsoft, which really takes care of their data. And the idea is to really help in bringing these people back to the Microsoft fold and allow them to build the Power Apps to solve those use cases which they're currently relying on these third-party tactical tools for. So that's the final thing that I want to make a point on. Using these PCF code components, all of a sudden, you can start building Power Apps to address certain mainstream use cases, which, as I said, people are using third-party tools for. So, we're really talking about project management use cases. There's a lot of stuff people do in relation to projects in every organization, of course. A lot of organizations are building product these days and have agile methodologies around that. So this is another sort of common area where people are using third-party tools. And the other sort of use case, or an example use case, is in this sort of strategy and planning arena, where people at the highest level of the organization, the C-level even, are using tools to plot their strategy and understand what's going on in their organization. You have enterprise architecture and functions like this. And again, we see investments in many tools out there. But the idea is to allow people to believe that they can accomplish these use cases very well inside of a Power App. So that's what I'm going to demonstrate today. And you might be asking, okay, where do I get these code components from? And there's essentially two sources. So one is we now have a healthy collection of code components which have become available, inside if I go and open up a browser window, have some of you come across the PCF gallery in the room before? Have you guys ever come across this website before? Okay.
1/5 of the room, eh?
1/5 of the room. Okay, great. Right. Okay. So this has been about for around for 3 years, and essentially it's a big website of these code components, and it, as you can see, has many of these, and the idea is you simply go into these and you can import them into your PowerApps environment to begin using your apps. Now, as you guys may be familiar, there are 2 types of PowerApps essentially, more than that, strictly speaking, but you have model-driven apps and canvas apps. And I would say 95% of the code components that you see here on this site are for model-driven components, model-driven apps, sorry. And that's not what I want to focus on today. I actually want to focus on canvas apps, because 70% of Power Apps built today worldwide are actually canvas apps. And canvas apps are the ones that actually give you the most flexibility to define your own user experience to address a particular use case. But these are components which have been built by the community and enthusiasts, which is great. And you will find a real mixed bag of stuff here. Some, really interesting use cases which businesses might find useful. But you'll also find stuff which has been built by hobbyists, like stuff about Star Wars and things like that, movie collections and things like that. So definitely worth having a look at. Yeah, sorry, I'm only picking up crumbs off that. Ahmed, if you could just reiterate the question for me, please.
So the question is, isn't there a Microsoft official repo of PCF components?
No, not yet. So I've had discussions with the sort of PCF engineering team who I work with regularly. And this is a brand new technology. If you consider Power BI, Power BI has been running for many years, and it has like an official, almost like it's all very much integrated into App Source. And if you go into Power BI and you click on Get More Visuals, for example, you will see a whole marketplace, right, full of these custom visuals. That same capability yet doesn't exist for Power Apps. And again, being blunt, this is the reason why I brought my company Locodera to the market. So the other source where you can kind of get these components from is commercial third-party companies, and I'm one of the first to establish myself, Locodera, because we're very much about we see a market emerging for, just like with Power BI, as things mature, a place where people will be able to readily come and get these components from professional companies. So you have the community, but what's really going to drive the sort of market forward is companies coming on board which provide a professional service and support around these components, which you can rely on, so you can start using these in your apps and build your apps with these with confidence. And that's where Locodera, my company, comes into it. So that's the second source, if you like, of where you can grab these components from. We're one of the first and leading providers of these components. And my job today is to show you what you can achieve using PCF code components. And I'm just immediately going to jump into a series of demos to demonstrate the benefits. So the first use case which I'd like to demonstrate is the one around project management. All right, so it's an easy one to understand. Everyone knows what project managers by and large do. And the next set of demos is going to be about some Power Apps which really transform those business processes which may be undertaken. So the first demo is about risk management. So every organization has a bunch of risks which they need to be able to manage, and this process, is managed in many different ways today. Excel spreadsheets where risks are logged, risk registers, even existing Power Apps which people have built, SharePoint lists, you name it. You'll see solutions for organizations managing risks. What I'm showing you here is a Power App which has been built using these PCF components, and you can see straight away this doesn't really look like an out-of-the-box Power App, right? Because you've got integrated charting, visuals, this grid at the bottom which behaves a lot like Excel. You've got integrated filtering. When I'm going to log a risk for a department, I can go in, and when I select a drop down, you can see these charts on the right hand side changing in real time. And this is just a lot nicer user experience than what you can build today using the out of the box controls that Microsoft give you inside of a Power App. And it's really great when you combine these components together inside your Power App with the ones Microsoft give you, because you can create these really compelling user experiences. So this is a roadmap plotting those same risks across the business department, so you can see the status, and you can actually see in a monthly, quarterly, yearly view what's actually happening with your business risks. And one of the great things about code components like this, and this is where there's some additional benefits than simply just diverting to Power BI to visualize stuff, is that this is also an opportunity for you to not just visualize data inside of your app, but to provide your end users with a mechanism to both visualize and manipulate the data in real time. So you can see here, I'm actually dragging this risk around into a different month, and that's actually writing back to the underlying data source in real time. So suddenly we've got the same visual showing you and allowing you to visualize what's going on, but you're also using it as a space to allow your users to manipulate the data. So you can, in this case, change the duration of a particular item on this roadmap, or actually change the dates around as well. So that's really powerful, that concept. Does that make sense so far before I jump into some more demos? Yeah, okay. Right. So I'm going to now just jump back and let's go into another common thing which program managers have to undertake, not just program managers, portfolio managers inside of an organization. So there's many projects which we know exist inside of companies, and these companies have to, we have to balance off which projects are urgent, which ones are we need to prioritize, and which ones, we don't necessarily need to focus on, because there's only so much resource and attention we can and resource we can give these projects. So this is, again, another code component which allows you to construct a really rich user experience. In this case, we call it an Eisenhower matrix, where you plot your quadrants and you can see which projects are urgent and which ones you can eliminate. So each project is represented by a card, and as a group of stakeholders, you can come together and you can make decisions on which projects you want to prioritize. The ones in the top left are deemed to be urgent and important, whereas the ones in the top, bottom right, you can eliminate from your portfolio. So the idea of this user experience is that you import your projects in, and of course, because this is a Power App, you can link to third-party data sources. So if your projects are in project online, if your projects are in Jira, GitHub, Azure DevOps, SharePoint, wherever they are, you can import them into this component here, and you can immediately start with your stakeholders dragging things around. And of course, there's a lot of customization options with the look and feel. But what's really powerful beyond the dragging and dropping is that you can allow your users as an app maker to perform different actions against a project. So something you can't do in a Power App today is to allow your users to right click on anything. So this is possible here, and you get to define this menu option to say, okay, what do you want them to allow you? What do you want your users to do? Do you want them to be able to quickly add a new project? Do you want them to delete this project maybe? Do you want to edit some information about it? Do you want to highlight this entry? What's really neat about this option is, okay, I want to know some more information about this project. So let's right click and let's go through to a project dashboard. And maybe in the past, you would be linking through to maybe something in Power BI. But now with these code components, what you can do is develop this dashboard experience directly into your application, your Power App. So this isn't Power BI, this is actually a Power App, which is nicely displaying all of this data inside of your app, and your user hasn't had to leave that app in any way or incur any additional licensing on Power BI. So that's quite powerful. Right. So what I'm going to do is just show you one more in this particular use case, and then after that, just jump to another use case. Okay, task management. This is something we're all familiar with. Lots of tasks floating about in an organization. Again, using these code components, you can create these nice dashboard views of, new tasks coming in, overdue tasks. So this is also about creating these nice user experiences. So you can see we've got this nice menu on the left, and I'll probably quickly show you how to build one of these in a few seconds. And what this app allows you to do is nicely manage anything task-based. And again, we've got some nice visuals. So if you typically you're using Planner and things like that to manage tasks, but if you really want to have an app where you've got tasks which you're plotting, or your data set has anything task related, which would lend itself well to a Kanban board, then you can easily build these Kanban experiences as well. So again, they come with, drag and drop and, being able to click onto the item, a nice card. So you can quickly build up these rich user experiences. And again, with any use case, you can apply these code components, the same ones to it. So this is a nice grid view. And it's things like being able to, like you do in Excel, drag down and it copies and pastes the values below. You can't really do that in Power Apps today. And you can just see there, I've done that inside of this advanced grid, which I'm showing you here today. If you wanted to group by priority, you just drag that column up to the top left. It's just a lot nicer, right, than what you have inside of a Power App today. So that's your task management use case. And I'll go into our second branch of use case here. And this is about product development and where people are using an agile methodology. So are people in the room familiar with the agile methodology and the agile way of working? Sorry, Ahmed, if you can do the quick survey for me.
I think everyone is, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a concept of feature prioritization, right? So there's a backlog of features, and these need to be prioritized and estimated. And often one of the challenges is that when you've got a big backlog and you're building a product, it's difficult to know kind of with some certainty and some science which ones you should build first, which ones you should devote development effort to first versus later. And again, this is a great example of where you can apply these code components to that particular use case to solve it. So we have a framework here where we are classifying our backlog, in this case, based on whether features are used by all of the users and how frequently. So this is about how many users is it used by, this particular feature do we think it's going to be used by, and how frequently is it likely to be used. So if we're saying a feature is going to go in the top right, we're saying it's going to be used by all of the users and it's going to be used pretty much all of the time. Whereas if we're dragging something to the bottom left, what we're saying is that it's not really going to be used by anyone and it's never going to be used. So essentially, anything on the bottom left, you can kind of ignore. On the top right, that's the maximum scoring zone. And the idea is you go through with your stakeholders making these decisions. This is another matrix where you're classifying those same features on what the reward and effort ratio is. So in the top right, we're saying it's low effort to build and implement this feature, and it's a very high reward. Whereas on the bottom left, we're saying it's very high effort to build this feature, and it's going to yield us little reward. And actually, the beauty of a Power App with these code components is as you're moving stuff around, what is happening in the background is that you have just streamlined and automated your whole feature prioritization, because we're actually scoring all of those moves. And in real time, what you're building up is a clear picture of what features you should be focusing on first. So if you're working with your stakeholders on making those decisions in those matrix, you have just automatically prioritized your backlog, and you now know what you should start building and getting your developers to start focusing on as part of your next product iteration. So again, that's a pretty neat way of automating and streamlining an existing business process relating to Agile using these code components. Right, so let's go back. And let's just show one more. There's about 20 or 25 examples. We haven't got the time to run through all of those, so I'll just pick out a few. Again, this is showing what you'd expect to see at the end of a sprint. Typically, there's a sprint report produced with burn down stats and things like that. And again, people might be using Power BI for this today. People are using PowerPoint. You can do that in an interactive Power App. Sorry, was there some comment? Okay, I'll go on. So that's your Agile method examples, and I'll just quickly at a glance show one more. So again, product iteration planning, PI planning, where you're looking at dependencies between features and things like that. This sort of stuff is done using other software today. And our goal was to really start bringing this advanced capability into Power Apps so people can perform these activities inside of a Power App and build their own customized workflows and apps around these processes, which you can't really do inside of a Power App today. So it's about really unlocking these use cases to give you that power and confidence to be able to do those things. And finally, just a couple of random examples, if you like. So let's go with, you know, a sales funnel process where you're looking to manage your sales pipeline and your sales leads. And again, this is a classic one which you might want to bring into a Power App because everyone does it slightly differently maybe, and there's always links that you want to integrate into other systems and processes through Power Automate. Again, just having a Kanban board experience here where you can define your lanes, and you know, as a lead comes in, you can really focus your team on what they need to do, what needs to be followed up on, what's being closed right the way through till the end. And yeah, it's just a nice way of being able to do that. And you know, as a new lead comes in, you can have this in front of you, you can assign it to whether, you can change the color of a card, and boom, it appears on here. So I'll just quickly show you two more examples. So this is an example of a sales dashboard where you're dealing with sales data. And I really like this example because not only does it have the rich visuals which you can, you know, interactively filter on things, you can hover over stuff, you can even like activate dark mode, you can even do things like allow your users to download the charts. But what I really like in particular to illustrate the point is that this is a chart here, and if I click on this edit button and I just amend some data here, without any delay, that chart is updated in real time, as you can just see there. Now, if you're relying on Power BI, often when you're working with, you know, especially a SharePoint data source or something like that, you're relying on an incremental data refresh to kick in before any data is updated. Whereas this is instant. So being able, you know, and this really unlocks certain use cases where you need that real time, and you want to allow your users to manipulate the data and see the impact of that straight away. So that's all there. And a few months ago, around the World Cup, we actually launched a fantasy football app. Using just to showcase in a fun way the sort of power of what's achievable with Power Apps. And we got to the point where we had 32 participants taking part in this tournament. So we basically imported all of this data in from a FIFA database, the latest FIFA database, a database of 15,000 players. And we invited anyone with a Microsoft 365 account into this app. And what they had to do was pick their 11, like I'm doing very badly here, because we gave them a 500 million euro budget. And as you add players to your Power App here, you can see that progress bar indicating how much you've spent. And you know, the great thing about this fun example is that it really showcased the power of what's possible in a fun and nice way. So you know, I'm looking at Karim Benzema here, and if I click on him, it's a really nice data set because you know, we've got all of his player stats, you know, how good he is at finishing, attacking, his skill levels and things like that, all built into this app. And you know, if you wanted to, for example, compare two strikers before you decide if you want them in your team or not, you click on them, and you can compare them side by side to see where one stands out against the other. And so what we asked people to do was to pick their 11, and we basically built a whole match engine and an algorithm around this, which conducted live draws of the teams and then simulated the match outcomes in the tournament based on, there's about 30 to 40 data points each player has. And we ask the players to then, just like you do in fantasy football, to construct your formation. So this is all inside of the same Power App. You create your lineup. Of course, it needs to have 11 players. And we then put in place I think it was, can't remember if it was 100 or 500 euros or dollars cash prize, and someone won that in the tournament. But again, this is a great example of putting it all together to accomplish something pretty powerful at the end of it. All right, that's the sort of demo segment done. Any questions before I spend maybe just the last 10 minutes on showing you how easy it is to start working with these components in a Power App?
I saw revenue and expenses on the dashboard. Where do you take it from? Like Business Central or some piece accounting?
The data source. So main question is what is the data source of the
Of expenses and revenue. So
yeah.
because revenue is a questionable task to estimate in accounting place.
Yeah. So the data source is entirely, flexible. So it's no different to how you're creating a Power App today. So whether you're using SharePoint or have a connector to where your data is coming from, that doesn't change. And so all of this doesn't change where the data is coming from or put any constraints on where the data needs to come from. So you've got Dataverse, SharePoint, and all of the existing 300 plus connectors to use to in your Canvas app, just like today, to work with. So it's entirely flexible. I'm not sure if that answers the specific question.
The data source can be anything with this
Yes.
Power Apps. It's independent of the Power Apps basically, right? So like you mentioned, the expenses data can come from, let's say, maybe some Xero or some other integrations or anything. But it can render accordingly.
Yes. If the Power App can talk to it, then you can have it in your app.
How is it in terms of configuring it? Because it's low code. If we wanted to do SharePoint like you did earlier with the signature app, it was working. So because these components look very complex, is it just as simple to connect and set up?
Yeah. So that's what I'm going to show you next. So let me jump in just in the interest of time as well, right? So I've got somewhere here a blank Power App, right? So it's got nothing on it at the moment, right? Now, what I'm not going to cover is the process of how you get hold of these components and how you install them into your environment. It's pretty straightforward. You just need to be able to go to App Source, click on a button, and import them into your environment. And you need to have privileges to do that. But once they're available in your environment, right, you essentially may have not seen it before, but there is this zone here when you click on plus. So this is all the standard components which you have inside of your app, like your text labels, which we're all familiar with. But there's this new section called code components. And this is the bit where you can use these ready-made third-party code components if you've got access to them. And what you can do is once you've got access to them is you click on this button called Get More Components. And for example, with Locodera, we offer this whole extension of code components of about 30. And there's different ones. And of course, we haven't got time to go through them all today. But what I'm going to show you today is just a quick couple of examples of, and we're going to start with, for example, a bar chart component. So that's now available. And just like any other control, it's on my canvas here. Okay, so it starts off blank. Okay, because as you might expect, we need to give it some data to work with. And what we're going to do is we're going to start off very simple. And what we have with Locodera is we have an area, our documentation area, where we document and show examples of all of our components. And if you go to our bar chart, for example, it will show you all the different sort of styles and things like that that you can create. But the great thing is here, this is all just like the native controls work. They rely on power effects. So the formulas that you use inside your Power Apps today, it works exactly the same. And what I'm going to do is just copy this code snippet here today, which is immediately going to give us a chart with some static data. So this isn't going to be connected to any data source like SharePoint or anything like that just yet. But as soon as I've pasted that in, we should 1 second. I have made a schoolboy error and opened up the wrong app. 1 second, guys. Let me find a better app to work out of to speed this up in the interest of time. Yeah, there is a step where you just basically need to activate the components in your environment. But that's the boring bit, so I won't cover that today. Okay. All right, so I'm hoping if I just add a new screen here. Okay, great. So just added an empty bar chart. I've come here, I've copied this code snippet, and I'll come back here and I will with a bit of luck not see anything. This is the classic demo curse right here. Live demo. It not working. Second. Okay. All right. Okay, let's just try an existing control. Okay. If this doesn't work, I've got a very quick plan B, which I'll revert to answer the question. Okay. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to switch environment very quickly. And
On YouTube, you're saying?
sorry, say that again.
Sorry, not for that one. It's okay.
Okay. All right. So right. Hopefully in this environment we'll have better luck. That's a development environment which I've probably killed in some way. Okay, so this is a good one because hopefully we'll be able to also show some other charts. So let's just try here. quickly add a new screen. Let's go here, bar chart, and okay, there is something not right today, but okay. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to we have this show in the UK used to be called Blue Peter, where you say, here's one I made earlier. But essentially, these charts, once you load them in, essentially you just have to, just like you get a gallery control or you get any other control, you have to feed it with data. So you can see here, this chart is connected to a data source here, a collection in this example, and it works no different to kind of a normal control inside of a Power App. I'm just going to just see if there's any other code snippet which might work. And yeah, not quite doing it today. But Azim, sorry, it's a bit of a bunged up answer to your question, right? The simple answer is you basically get the component in your environment, and just like a text box or any other control, you drag it onto your screen, and then you have the properties. So just like here on the right hand side, you see different properties. So from here, I've got the top left component at the moment. I'm changing the colors on that chart, just like you do with any other component. It works. It's all by properties. So these are built in, and you can see the colors changing. You can change the sizes, the fonts, and all these other things which are typically available. So it's exactly the same way as which, you use the out-of-the-box components, except these are not built by Microsoft, and they are built by others to do different things. Does that make sense? Yeah. Unfortunately, I couldn't give you the satisfaction of starting from scratch. There's something not right on my environment. I think it's one of those where I've had this open for about 3 days, this window, and sure, if I logged back out and in, it'd probably start working. I think probably something's expired in terms of my session.
I have a follow-up question to that.
Yes. Go on.
So you mentioned that one of the things you're trying to accomplish is replace, let's say, Monday.com. You have like a migration tool for that, because it looks like this had some learning curve to it. So is there an easy way to switch?
Yeah, look, so the thing about this is, right, so there's the components, and each component, just like the Power Apps one, has its own properties and things which you need to be aware of. And it's the same as kind of learning Power Apps with, when you first use the gallery control or text box. So it's that same level of effort, getting to know what the inputs and outputs of each control is, because suddenly you've got these new Lego pieces to work with. But if you wanted to go faster, right, what companies like mine are beginning to do is that we don't just give you the components, we'll also, give you ready-made sort of solutions and templates. So you don't need to worry about that. So for example, if you wanted a sample dashboard, all of the examples that I showed you on the test drive earlier on are available to download as Canvas apps. So these are pre-built. So if you didn't want to invest the effort in using the components and pair them up to build these experiences yourself, you could just start with a template. So that's the way in which we want to be the Monday.com for Power Apps. And the way around that is if you consider what Monday.com have done, they've built these components, and then they've built the templates on top, right, which allow you to do the stuff that you do on Monday.com. And so this is similar. You can build your own Monday.com, if you start building your templates, if that makes sense.
Also, regarding the projects and tasks, do you have multi-level subtasks like on Monday or Asana? So it's very useful thing that I can't use Microsoft task managers.
Yeah, so I think I caught most of that. Was that about multi-level tasks? The question around.
tasks and
Yeah.
yeah. Like you have in Asana and Monday.com, but it's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
tasks.
Yeah. So look, I mean, again, some of our components are here. For example, this roadmap component, which we have, it does support multi-level, but right now, the way it's been developed is it only supports 2 levels, so a main and then a subtask. But if you take our grid component, for example, then, based on the way your data is organized, you can actually group into many more levels. So one of the things we're working on this next couple of months is a really multi-level advanced Gantt chart component. And again, Microsoft, as you said there, offer solutions. You've got Project for Web now as well, but that's very restricted. You get what you get. And the idea here is if you want to do something more bespoke or more integrated into your business process, you can build your own Power App to do that. Using these components. That's the idea behind them. If you want something simple, then you can, just download a pre-built template, which may be suitable also.
It's just when if you test have a column or have data of the next task or previous task. So it's not very complicated thing, but it's not in Microsoft environment, so it could be very useful. So not only as text, not only as a as a chart, but it should be in data. It should be a column of previous tasks.
Yeah, and again, this is why the PCF code framework was made available. It's to solve, where maybe the existing platform doesn't quite do it, and you can fill in these gaps, and this gives you the flexibility to do that. Yeah, I'm sorry my demo was so rubbish there. I think I probably need to restart, but we haven't got time for that. Is there any other questions? I'm also happy, of course, to follow up with anyone.
No, it was pretty good. I think we got a good idea of what the power of PCF code components is. Actually, some beautiful components there for sure. If you guys have any questions, of course, you can just reach out to any of us. You can reach out to Rahan directly as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was the main point, to show you what is possible. How it's done, I think, probably requires a bit more of a more focused session on that. But yeah, anyone feel free to reach out to me for more questions. Great stuff. Great session, Ahmed. Thanks for organizing all of this. Really appreciate it. And hopefully we can continue to support you with growing this network out in Dubai.
Definitely, we'll collaborate on more sessions. Definitely. Thank you so much, Rahan, for joining in.
No problem. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Hopefully next time I'll be there in person for the next one.
Looking forward to that. Definitely.
Awesome. All right. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
See you later. Bye-bye.